All right.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody, and I certainly appreciate the opportunity to speak with all of you and just really share my experiences. Nick and I, he pinged me last week just to ask me if I was ready to speak with you all, and I said absolutely. You know, what should I focus on and what should I talk about? And really, Nick just responded to me. He says, you know, students, people are always just really eager to hear about, you know, individuals' journeys, and then of course how that fits into the context that you all are doing. So what I really want to do is I want to share with you my experience. I know I've talked with people individually and in bits and pieces, but I get an opportunity, which I love to do. I'm a Leo #1, so it's always about me. And so if I get a chance to have an audience and share with you my experience, I'm absolutely happy to do that. So I hope we'll, you know, have a chance to gain some insight on just a little bit about me, but I think it will give context to what my role is here as the dean. And then again, what you experience in your different roles, whether you're a student, whether you're faculty, whether you're staff, whether you're a community member. But, you know, I really take great pride in being a member of this STEM division and really supporting the work that you do. And I would say that often people see me as the leader making the decisions, but the reality is it's an easy process for me because you all are really engaged and really want to do some great work. And it doesn't matter what end of the spectrum that you are at. So with that said, I am going to share my screen. And I'm going to go on ahead, get rid of that little message. Give me a second to get ready. All right, okay. And so, you know, the title Opportunities Education Holds is really a personal one for me because I'm going to share with you just who I am, where I started, who have been the support mechanisms. And I can tell you that I am like any one of you that have your own personal experiences that have led you to the point that you're at right now. And oftentimes in STEM, we think that we may not have the right people in place, we may not have the right support, we may not be the right person to be in STEM. And I have to say that I was one of those people not really realizing that I could have really done and have done anything that I wanted to do. So that's really the experience I want to share. And through that, I'm going to offer you three things for consideration, three strategies that I've learned over my lifetime that have really been the crux of just how it's led me to the experiences and the opportunities that I've had and still continue to have. So already people are already playing here, but I first want to have us engage in just a little bit of activity. So Brian has already sent the information, and whether you're on a computer, which you could respond via this URL at the top, or whether you are texting, you can respond via text with the second piece, putting in Raymond Hernandez 202 at 37607. So just to get a sense that everybody can go on ahead and utilize this system, I'm going to give just about a minute for people just to respond, get logged in and respond, because I have a few questions for you as we go through this. And I'm going to respond as well so that I'm included in this survey. But again, how long have you been a student at Skyline College?
The number and dial.
All right, Nick, sounds like Nick needs some help with technology. Okay, so So we have about right now, we'll see what happens with the race, but certainly the majority of people have been here less than 1 year at least who's on this call. We have a few that have been here more than 4 years with the second running. And then we have a few people that are friends of Skyline College. And I say I did this survey and I actually fit into two categories. So I certainly have been here for more than 4 years. I have spent almost 24 years of my professional career at Skyline College. And I have to say, I call this home. Has been, and continues to be really just a great place for me. And I always think fondly and really love coming to campus, even though we can't do that right now. And feel like I oversaw and taught in the respiratory care program. And I always forget that I was not a graduate of the program, but I feel like I've been part of that community. And the other piece is I have been and will always be a friend of Skyline College as well. So it looks like we got most people to go on ahead and log in. And so interesting enough, people who are on today's video presentation, most of them have been here less than 1 year, and that's great to see, and that people who are with the college have been here for less than 1 year. One interesting fact that we're finding out that when we look at students who come to the community college system, that even though community colleges are supposed to be a 2-year experience, most of our students have been here for 3+ years before they end up getting their degrees, with most of them taking anywhere from 4 to 6 years on average to complete their degree. And I say that only to know that as a dean and as a member of this community, we have to do a better job at really supporting you, our students, in really figuring out how to have a great experience, but really how to help you move forward so that you can meet your goals much, much quicker. All right, so with that said, I'm going to move on to our next slide. And so great to see that people are participating. And so what I want to do is I want you to now go on ahead and identify one word that describes your experience at Skyline College. As you're doing that, as mentioned in the previous slide, I've given you some words that I use for Skyline College and that I feel like will always be a friend of the college. I feel like it's home, and the things that I've done have just really been life-changing for me. And so I see people are seeing clean, eye-opening, COVID-19, of course, everybody is certainly into that, and we're all experiencing that. Foggy, for those of us who have been here a longer time, Nick and I don't know who else is here or who's been here longer, but we can both say that the climate has certainly changed in the 2 decades we've been here. And from my perception, from when I began at the college in 1996, I certainly see a lot less foggier days than I have seen previously. I live in San Francisco. Nick, you live in Pacifica down the hill. How would you characterize the change in climate in the 20+ years that you've been in this area?
Well, it's definitely got nicer, a lot sunnier. So I'd say that.
And have you seen the microclimates and the flora, fauna, and wildlife change in the 20+ years you've been here?
Yeah, it's changing. We're seeing a lot more death of the trees and stuff like that. So I think the trees are going to die out, and then there's going to be some new ones kind of coming in. So.
Yeah, so again, just to say, I think, I've seen this community and I've seen it change for good and for bad. And of course, one of the things in climate change is we're going to see a change to our landscape and what lives around us as well. In that, I'm looking at many of the descriptive words that people are putting, and one of the things that I really am appreciating and really warms my heart is there are a lot of positive words that people are using to describe our home here at Skyline College. So it's really nice to see. So thanks for engaging in that. All right, I'm going to share with you now a little bit about my personal life. So I think it's important in the story, you know, just that you know the people that you spend a lot of time with. I can say that working at Skyline College, I spend more of my waking time at work with the people I work with. And even though I don't see students from hour to hour, I do spend a lot of time roaming the halls. I do spend a lot of time seeing people. And it's important that we know who we are. And for those of you that have come into my office or have talked to me, I'm very readily an open book to share who I am, because I think the more people know about me, the more I can support and the more I can be successful in the work that I do. So this here is a picture of my parents. My mom and my dad are in the center. They're, of course, the center of attention. They're getting married. At this picture, I think my mom is 17 years of age, and my dad is 21. Both of them grew up in Mexico. They came here as immigrants. My dad, I think that this is probably a picture when he was probably, I don't know, maybe about 11 or 12 years of age. He didn't go to high school. He didn't go to middle school. I think that he finished 6th grade. So that's as far as he got. Most of the work that he did was as a farm laborer. Certainly while he was in Mexico, and even coming into the United States, working as a farm laborer for those opportunities that they wanted to engage in, hearing about the United States and what would be fruitful there. My mom, on the other hand, she also migrated from Mexico, and she made it through high school. So she graduated from high school, got her diploma. My parents met in Fresno, California. That's where they had settled and their families met. And for both of them, they started both in the fields working as farm laborers, mostly in grapes, mostly in almonds. In the Central Valley, those were most of the things that were growing in that area at that time. They met. My mom was going to high school. My dad met her in church. My dad started to hang around, and before you know it, they ended up coupling and ended up getting married at that early age. As we go forward, they built a family. Here they are. This is back in the 60s. My mom was rocking the bouffant hairdo back in the day. But one of the things about both of my parents is they were very both driven to hard work. And in that hard work, my dad, even though he had up to a 5th or 6th grade education, just very bright man, very driven, had a lot of common sense. And I think I got a lot of that common sense just from him, whether that's a genetic trait or whether that's learned from him. My mom, as I said, finished high school, and she really just was so encompassing, is so encompassing. She's still alive. My father passed away about 15 years ago. But both of them kind of moved away from the farm laboring piece. And while they were still living with their parents, especially on my mom's side, her parents started to sell tamales out of the back of their Chevy. And that's how they kind of started the restaurant business. And so with that, when my parents got married, they started to really work in that and started to develop a business sense and be able to open up their own restaurant. And so as you look at this here, I'll go in order. My sister Diana, she was, of course, firstborn, and she was born not too long after my parents got married. And I'll leave that piece up to you. Won't say any more to that one. But she was born about 11 months later. My brother Louis was born, so it didn't take too long. Again, at that time, my parents were very much into Mormonism. And so the thought of building a family and first being Hispanic, everybody thought we were Catholic and raised in that fashion, but I was raised in the Mormon faith as we were growing up. So family was a very important piece, and having a large family was a very important piece. So my brother Louis, 11 months after my sister Diana, my brother Rudy 2 years later, and then of course I'm sure you all realize this cute little boy being held by my mom is me. I was born 2 years later. And then 6 years later, my brother David, so I was the baby for 6 years and then became kind of the older sibling 6 years later when my brother David was born. And then yet 11 months later, again, my sister Patsy was born. So my mom was very busy in terms of familial work. However, both my parents were very busy in the restaurant business. And about this time, my dad actually was in pest control and he was working for another company. But I would say that when I turned about maybe 5, 6, my parents had started a restaurant business. And when I got into teenagerhood, at that one point in my time, my parents were pretty successful and they had about 4 restaurants going all at the same time, and that was in Fresno, California. So I want to let you know we had a middle class life, and I would say a lower to middle class life. My parents were able to get us a house that was really kind of on the fringe of the nicer neighborhoods of Fresno. Growing up Hispanic, I would say that most people that I grew up with were Caucasian because they bought a house that was on the outskirts of some of the better schools. So while the schools that I went to were really on the nicer side, I didn't really connect with very many people because most of the people that I went to school with didn't run in the same arenas that I did socioeconomically. So I felt like an outcast probably for most of my K through 12 experience. So that's a little bit about my family. If we look at all 6 of them, I just want to just stop here to say that I was the first to go to college and then followed by my sister Patricia. And we are the only 2 that made it to college. Of all of us, the only ones that finished high school were in succession, my brother Louis, myself, and my sister Patsy. So only 3 of the 6 of us actually finished high school, which is, you know, just interesting in terms of how we all had the same support, all the same experiences, yet even from the trajectory of getting out of even high school, half of my siblings did not finish high school. And one of the things that I learned early on was, you know, why is it that it was different for me to get through and move forward and not some of my other siblings? So I just want to hold that thought as we move forward. So here's another aspect, okay? And so while we were in Fresno, as I mentioned, my parents had up to 4 restaurants moving forward, and this was the restaurant that was probably the most prosperous. It was in the middle of town. You can see me here, little different looking than I do now. We would wear mariachi outfits. Mariachis would come on the weekends, and so we kind of did the whole thing really to promote the business. And I have to say that growing up, one of the work ethics that I really just learned was, you know, no matter how old you were, you contributed to the family and you contributed to the work life. So I think that that was one preliminary work ethic that I gained moving through that. My sister Patricia is over here, my brother Rudy, and then this is my mom over here, and again, my sister Diana. I'm sorry, Diana and Diana here. So that was one phase that we moved through with the restaurant business, and I think it just gave me that, you know, ethic of you do work and there are benefits that you reap. So rather than going out with and playing with my friends, going out on the weekends, I usually worked in the restaurant. All right, so I want to stop here and again give you an opportunity. Tell me what your major is right now, because I want to see your majors, and then I want to share where I was at the time that you are now, or even before that. So as you're identifying that, I just want to say that as I was growing up, there really weren't any professionals around me, lawyers, doctors, scientists. So all of those things, educators, so all of those things were not accessible to me. My mom, as I was growing up, had always said, oh, you know, you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer. And I used to listen to that, but I never really believed it, because I felt that was her dream. And it was just a dream because we didn't see anybody who did that. Prior to me, nobody had gone to college in my family, both on my mom and dad's side. None of them had gone to college. And so at that point in time, when my mom would tell me, okay, you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer, I didn't believe it. However, I had connected with friends who had were planning to go to college, and they were planning to go to community college, and I actually just followed them to college. And it was because I enjoyed their company, but I had no aspirations of what to do other than to take a couple of courses. And when I got to community college at that point in time, the lawyer aspect didn't interest me because I didn't like to talk at all. Who knew? I can't stop talking now. But medical field did. It interested me in helping people, but to become a doctor, even become a nurse, that didn't interest me. And so it was really a counselor who got me interested in something that was healthcare related. So getting to a community college, I have to say, was an excellent haphazardous point for me, because had I not gone to community college because of my friends, I don't know where I would be today. So nice to see that, you know, based on this being a STEM focus, you know, I have to say that knowing what I know now, I could have done and been any one of these back when I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I want to take you on a journey in terms of just, okay, what did I do? So I want to preface it by saying I got to community college, excellent, but I had no direction. I had no mentors that could tell me, other than my two friends who weren't interested in healthcare or STEM. One was interested in business, and the other one was kind of like me. She was just going to college until really she got married. That was really her focus. And again, that was back in the early 80s as we were moving through. So it was a counselor that I got in contact with because I heard about I could get free money through Pell Grants. And in order to get that money or to apply for it, I had to meet with a counselor. And that counselor was the person who told me about respiratory care. I had no idea what that was. I did know I had difficulty breathing when I was young, but never went to a doctor to address it. It was very mild. And that person really got me focused in on this program and this degree. So it took me 4 years. And I have to say that it was probably about 15 years later that I realized that the opportunities that I received at the community college really set the trajectory for the rest of my life. And had I had not had that opportunity, I don't, again, know where I would be. I certainly know examples just from my immediate family of family members who had gone through college. My youngest sister, she has an associate degree as a vet tech, and that's as far as she's gone, but she's doing well. I have one brother that lives on the streets right now, and we don't know how he's doing. So I just want to give you the gamut of that piece as well. As I moved on with my professional career, I got a chance to get a job at Valley Children's Hospital, which is in the Central Valley, and it's a tertiary hospital that brings in premature babies to age 18 from all over the Central Valley, as far north as Sacramento to as far south as Bakersfield. And so it was a great start to my professional career. I stayed there for about a year and then moved up to the Bay Area. And in the Bay Area, I ended up working as a respiratory care practitioner for 86, 96, for about 12 years. So I spent my time at the bedside working with neonatal pediatrics and really enjoying that and really learning a lot as I moved through. And it was when I was at Pacific Medical Center that I got connected to Skyline College. Students in the respiratory care program were rotating through to do their clinical rotations. And so that was the haphazard connection. I have to say, when I got into community college, my goal was to finish my degree so I would never, ever, ever, ever have to go back and be a student ever, 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 did I say ever, ever again. And I can tell you that lessons learned is that education has become such a major portion of my pathway, both professionally and personally. So I've worked at some really great institutions. All of it has been focused on neonatal pediatrics. So guiding philosophy. I would have to say one of the things that I learned early on, and I think I learned that from my dad and my mom, is really no matter who you are, where you are, how intimidated or afraid you feel, don't be afraid to look and explore. I've always been curious, and my curiosity, while it hasn't killed the cat, it's gotten me into a lot of opportunities. And so I would just say, you know, if something looks interesting, put your foot in, step in, ask questions. And what I found is it's not so scary, and there's a lot you can learn from it, and there's a lot of opportunity you can get from it. Okay? And here's the example why. I finished my associate degree. I was working at California Pacific Medical Center. Students would be assigned to work with me in the neonatal intensive care unit, and I just loved that. I loved imparting my knowledge. I loved seeing people get excited. And so then as I was doing that, I still had my associate degree. I still had in my mentality, I'm never ever going back to school. And here's what happened. The program director at the time, and Nick, you know Mike Williamson, he heard from the students that they really liked working with me. And so he invited me to be a guest lecturer in class. He then asked if I could teach a class. And I said, well, wait a minute, I just have an associate degree. You know, how could I do that? He says, well, the community college system, as long as you have adequate experience, your associate degree is fine. So I remember coming onto campus and being timid to connect with academics, people who had master's degrees and PhDs and were scientists. So the setting at first was intimidating to me. And as I started to engage with students and started to engage with faculty and staff, I began to quickly realize that I had something of value to contribute. So in that piece, I learned to explore. And in that exploration, I found out that in the programs, especially the career technical education programs, it's very hard to recruit and retain faculty for these programs, because the reality is that I made more money working as a healthcare practitioner than I would make as a faculty member. And so you think about the value that's placed on different careers. Oftentimes the ones that are of service, and I would say healthcare is of service and academia is of service, the monetary reward is not as valued as somebody who is an actor or somebody who works in business when we look at those pieces. So I was encouraged to apply for the full-time tenure track clinical director position within the program. And I was very intimidated to do that because I just had an associate degree. I stepped my foot in, I was encouraged to do it, and lo and behold, I was offered the position. And so that was a turning point. And through that, I became the clinical director. From there, I was awarded the program director when the program director at that time became the dean of this division. And then I got involved in academic senate, in leadership roles, accreditation and leadership roles. And in between that time, I began to realize the value of academic attainment. So I went back and I got my bachelor's degree, and that was in health services administration. And that got me to the point to being able to oversee the program itself. And that was at age 35 years. So just again to say, I'm going to say that it's never too late. And I know I've said that a few times. There's always opportunity. So at age 35, I went back and got my bachelor's degree, and it provided me more opportunity. The picture I show you here was in the old Building 7. This is on the 3rd floor, and this was the respiratory care lab, and this was the fabrication lab area. So our old respiratory care lab was the fabrication, is the current fabrication lab. And this was my first full cohort of students that I started with when I started as full-time faculty in 1997. And this was the graduating class of 1999. So I was very excited. And these were the cohort of students that I worked with. So I just wanted to share that with you. So here's the next guiding philosophy. Okay, you've stepped your foot into it. You can call whatever it is. That can be a positive statement or a negative statement. But once you do that, you know, I think that we as humans, we always, I would say most of the time, we have a number of narratives in our head that says why we can't do something or why we shouldn't do something. And I would just want to say every single day in my lifetime, there are all these opportunities that come before me. And I would say there are a lot of them that I disregard or I push away. But one of the things is I realized to go for it. I could have easily have said, oh no, I have only an associate degree. I shouldn't be applying for this position. And I almost didn't. And by applying for the position and really just moving forward, all they could say, and in this case, they could have said no, but they said yes. So think about that the next time you see something and you're starting to hear yourself say, oh no, I'm not good enough, or no, I shouldn't do this, or no, it's too much. Don't miss the opportunity. It can provide for more. All right, so I served in that role for, let's see, from 1998, maybe, 99, probably 1999, 2000, through 2011. And so as I began to receive leadership positions, I realized that it was important for me to get my master's degree. And so it wasn't until 2008, into my 40s, that I got my master's degree. And notice that I didn't get a master's degree in education, being an academic. I actually got it in public health because I was trying to broaden my umbrella, but really staying in the applied STEM pathway. And this particular degree is kind of nondescript. Public health is anything and everything. But here's what this degree afforded me. It had a minor in health education and was contextualized in program planning and program assessment. And I have to say that that has been so beneficial in just all the work that we do in academia, because it's all about providing programmatic function and support for success in academia and understanding what is of value in what we do and how we can always make it better. So I finished that degree in 2008, and then in 2011, our previous dean, Mike Williamson, was awarded an interim vice president position. And again, I was encouraged, hey, you should apply for this dean position. And in that, again, having a master's, not a PhD, I could have thought about, maybe I don't have the right academic credentials, maybe I don't have enough experience. But because I was encouraged, I went for it, and all they could say was no, but they didn't. And so, you know, since 2011 to now, 2019-20, that's, give me the math, 9 years. This division, I have to say, has strengthened. It has transformed. It has done so many things. And I want to say that the work that I do as dean isn't that I make the decisions or that I construct, but really I support the great ideas, the great energy, the great innovations. And my job is to make it happen. So whatever people come to talk to me about, it's really affording the opportunity when people want to make something and visualize something that I can really give my support so that it happens. And so oftentimes when things happen and things are awarded, it's really you all who are making the difference. You as a student, you as a faculty member, you as a staff, you are doing all the work. I really just am supporting the work that you do. And in that, I feel very gratified. So let me tell you some of the things that I think that I've done in the tenure of the 9 years as dean. This is just at a glance that the college provides, and I would say we provide a lot of the associate degrees. We have the only bachelor's degree within the district in respiratory care. We transfer a lot of students. We have diversity at this college. We've, in the past few years, really built the international program. So again, I'm going to say my role in that is really supporting this change and what we do here as a college. I also want to show you that when we look at what degrees are offered and certificates that are offered overall, the number one in our area are the Allied Health Science Associate degrees, and at least for a certificate, our Emergency Medical Technology certificate. Now, when we look at STEM and specific degrees, okay, we don't award a high number individually, but when we take all the STEM degrees, they would be the top 10 overall. So when we look at the number of degrees in transfer, biology is the number one transfer STEM degree that we have. And even though it's not listed on here, it is a sizable number. And if we were to put all the STEM degrees together, we do a great job at meeting the mission of Skyline College by ensuring that our students meet their goals, academic goals of preparation, transfer, and workforce preparation. So now I just want to kind of end, you know, okay, well, what have I contributed and what philosophies do I really provide? And I would say it's really embedded, and I think this college does a great job in equity and social justice. So one of the things I've been very proud of is in my tenure here, that me being a Hispanic gay man who has gone through being first to go to college, first sibling American in my family, to be now a Hispanic serving institution. So I represent that as who I am, and I think that the work that I've been able to support has gotten us there. As we've looked at hiring faculty, staff, and administrators, I have been very conscious that it's important that we change the percentage of cultural representation for employees here. And I think that we've done that. And so I have direct authority for hiring full-time staff, making that final decision, and adjunct faculty. And so if we look at the landscape, I think we see more faculty of color and for more diversity in terms of gender. And then of course with the staff as well. The other piece since my tenure is really faculty coming forward and working on gaining other funding mechanisms. So the grants, when I first started, we only had one grant that was just finishing as I became dean. And now we have multi-millions of dollars of grants moving forward. And so I saw Nick Langhoff, you are on the call today, and one of our largest grants with the Department of Education are Strengthening Pathways to Success. Stephen Fredericks with our STEM scholarship grants. We just sunsetted our current grant, which was $600,000, and we have a follow-up grant in the queue that will hopefully continue on with the scholarships, and we should know that in a couple of months. And then just news hot off the press within this last month is the Sky Bay Tech grant, which is a career-focused grant on the engineering track. That was just awarded earlier this month. And then just yesterday, our own Nick Cap just announced that we received the Bioscope grant for biotechnology. So just really exciting. And then we have a couple of other grant scholarships that are grants that are in the queue, and we hope to get those. So really has expanded our focus on equity and social justice, because all of these are focused on really increasing the diversity of our STEM pathways. And then STEM learning communities, we're looking at our engineering, tech, and biochem scholars. That continues to strengthen. And then our allied health learning communities that help move our students into those pathways as well. Mathematics has been the greatest bottleneck to success for any of our students in the pathways. And so we have been really working hard at really decreasing those barriers and providing a more direct pathway for students to be successful there. And then the final one here is really the bachelor's degree that for many of us, the bachelor's degree is unattainable for various reasons, and to have our very own bachelor's degree here at Skyline College is really a great feat overall. And then I just want to say, contextualized in all of this, is a great bark there for whoever has their dog representing, is really the STEM Center and everything that it holds for knitting all of this together to create a great resource. So that's really just a general summary of who I am, what I have contributed for this area of the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics division. Last guiding philosophy: you can be whatever you want. I have realized that. And when I go back to when my mom said she wanted me to be a doctor or lawyer, I could have been a doctor. I just want to let you know now, and no disparaging remarks for those of you who are on the pathway, I wouldn't choose becoming a doctor at this point in time. I would choose to be a nurse practitioner. That is the healthcare provider. I think if I were to go to that level, that would be where I want to be, delivering healthcare, but doing it in more of a comprehensive approach. Okay. All right. So with that said, I know, and I hope you're still all there. Where do you see yourself in 4 years? I'd love to see that, because I'm going to tell you where I think I'm going to be in 4 years. To be a nurse, exploring the world. Let's see what else. Come on, folks. Put them out there. Okay. Still at Skyline, alive, hopefully, a master's in nursing. Help people. Dental school or hygiene school. So as you're continuing to put those on, that's me, early retirement, although that wasn't my entry. So I want to let you know that, for all of you here, you're in a STEM pathway, which means just by the education that's needed and the experiences, it's more than just a 4-year degree for most of us. And just to say, I would say that, stick in there, because I can tell you just over I've been in my professional careers from healthcare to now, from 86, 106, 116, for 35 years now. And I would have never dreamed that this would have been my pathway. If you were to ask me at any point in time, where would you be in 4 years? I couldn't tell you, because that's not the way I have conducted kind of my professional and even personal career. I get excited by what's in front of me, and I like to explore that. And I have to say that not pigeonholing myself to a narrow path has given me such a rich experience professionally and personally. And not to say that's what you should do, but I just want to say be open to, if in a year or 2 years you're finding this pathway, I'm not sure if it's the right one. That's okay. Just keep moving forward, even if you take a veering turn here or there. So I appreciate that sharing. There are just a couple of more slides that I want to show you. So this is my family. This is my husband, Charles. My husband, Charles, works with Kaiser. He actually had really great opportunities, has great opportunities. He grew up in Idaho. He had parents who went to Ivy League schools, but they actually kind of left the rat race and took their family to the middle of nowhere in Idaho, built their own house, grew their own food, and really tried to live off the land. But he hated it there and wanted to go back to the rat race. And he ended up going to Brown University in Smith, and he became a social worker, and then went back to school and went to get his master's in business. And so he's now a project manager for Kaiser and really enjoys that opportunity. My son, Rico, both Charles and I love kids, but we never were interested or had a goal of becoming parents. However, Rico was really something that he came into our lives. He is my great nephew, and at the age of 5, his mother, my niece, passed away of cervical cancer. And so I really didn't know him to that point. And remember, I shared my family with you, and half of them, I would say more than half of them, are still struggling. They live month to month in terms of their living situation. So when his mom passed away and his dad was not in his life, my mom came to us and said, I don't know where Rico is going to be. His grandmother, who currently had him, she's not very stable. So within 2 months, and Nick knows all of this, but within 2 months, he became part of our family. So we became parents in less than unplanned pregnancy. And so with that said, I just wanted to end with thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share my experiences. This is the 50th anniversary of the college. These are 4 people who were recognized for their various accomplishments. Dr. Chris Case was also part of that, but it's been a pleasure working. In my next 4 years, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm excited to find out what that next portion leads. Brian, with that said, I'll turn it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ray, for sharing your insights with us. We had a handful of questions just come through the chat throughout the talk. And so I wanted to kind of share those with you with the time that we had left. I want to first start off with a comment. There's a comment that came in that says, thank you so much for sharing your journey. Hearing your story gives me motivation and encouragement to pursue my educational goals. Some really inspiring words. First question that I want to pose or forward to you is, how was the decision made to make the respiratory care the only BS degree at Skyline? And do you anticipate any other BS degrees being offered at Skyline in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, the public four-year university cannot meet the needs of bachelor's degrees that are needed to really drive the economy here in California and the nation. So that's already a known. And so the legislature has been really working hard to maximize our educational pathways. And one of the opportunities have been at the community college for many, many years. However, that's not the focus of the community college system. And so there's been a lot of tension between the public four-year universities, and particularly the CSUs, to allow the community colleges the ability to offer bachelor's degrees. So just to say, the legislature finally got through a pilot a few years ago for 15 bachelor's degrees, but it was very limited and prescriptive. Bachelor's degrees could not be duplicated that were already being offered at a CSU. So for most of you who are in a pathway, you know, your only option is to finish your work here at Skyline College and then transfer to a four-year. So right now, legislation doesn't allow for a transfer degree such as biology, a career degree such as nursing, because they're already well established at the four-year universities. So it was looking at different programs that were not being served. And one is for many of the healthcare professions, such as radiology, such as respiratory care, even automotive in terms of non-allied health. There were these opportunities where they weren't being served. So the hope next is for these pilots to be very successful, and then for the legislature to show how successful they are, and then to really start looking at degrees that are maybe duplicative from the four-year universities, but the four-year universities cannot meet the capacity for the workforce. So good question. So the more you know about it as a student, you can advocate with your legislator and let them know the importance at how you would love to stay at your community college and finish your bachelor's in biology or nursing, and what the benefits of that would be.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. We had one more come in earlier in the meeting here. So the question is as a STEM dean, what is the most challenging situation that you've had to deal with? And I'm going to pair it with another question that came a little bit earlier than that, which is like, how do you stay motivated specifically when things get hard? So, you know, what's a challenging situation, and maybe what's one thing that you learned and or a way to have dealt with?
Yeah. So here's my response always, because that's usually the, you know, one of the main questions. And I know this sounds cliche, but when I look out at my surrounding, the world, my glass is half full, and that's how I always look at it. So when somebody sees a challenge, I see an opportunity. And I'll give you the example of before this, and then I'll come to this. But when I was in the healthcare setting in the mid-90s, funding structures changed, and it was really to get people out of the hospital setting and more to preventative care. So a lot of the hospitals were consolidating, hospitals were closing, and at the institution I worked at, everybody was made to reapply for their positions. And I was freaked out like everybody else was, because I thought, oh my gosh, I don't have as much experience, or I haven't been there as long. But here was the opportunity. I had drive and energy because everything that I've done in my professional and personal life, I enjoy. I'm excited about that. I like looking in. I like exploring that. And in hindsight with that, I had nothing to worry about. I was told after all of that had happened, like, you know, Ray, you were one of the top people that we were looking to rehire. And we were actually using this as an opportunity to help people move on that really weren't good fits for this institution. So now I'll bring it here. What kinds of things are challenging? I would say the most challenging is when we're looking at large institutional outfits. And I'm just going to say in general, academia is a large institutional outfit that has many things that really keep equity and social justice at bay. The placement test for math, period. It keeps most of us out of where we want to get. And some people might even characterize placement testing as a way to weed out people and when I say we collectively, institutionally, we need to keep out, right? And so I would say that that has been a barrier, and it's taken many, many years to change that conversation to a positive, strength-based approach about, yes, that is a barrier, and what do we need to do when people need our help, when we're putting them into classes where there are more gaps and there are more struggles. And so the conversation now has changed from, oh no, we can't have students come in because they're not ready, to, okay, our students are in, what kinds of things do we need to do to support all students so they can all be successful? Now, that's not to say we figured that out and we're doing it to the best, but that's the example I would bring in the past 5 years that we've really been struggling with. And I think in my supportive role, helping to frame that and helping us to move forward. So thanks for the question.
Okay, we're going a little bit over time, but I'm just going to ask just one final question before we turn off here. And I'm just going to go with this final question that popped up in the chat. Who or what was your biggest motivation during your educational journey?
Well, there's one teacher that comes to mind, and she was in 5th grade, Mrs. Sturgeon. You kind of always remember the person and the name. And it was in math. And I couldn't tell you descriptively what it was about her, but there was something about her that I cannot forget. And there was probably words that she said or something she did to make me feel like it was worth it. So I would just say that what I learned from that piece and what I take away now and what I share with people is in our roles, and yes, this is our job, so I always have to remind us, this is our professional job. You know, those of us who come to work virtually now, who collect a paycheck monthly, this is our job. And we have to remember, no matter what we feel about certain processes or the work that we have a commitment. So when I'm walking the halls, or when I'm attending a meeting, or when I'm engaging in a hard conversation, I always have to remember that words matter and how we frame it matters. Because when we're talking to that person or when we're giving that time, I can think of so many instances where somebody has come back to me and said something to the effect of, you know, I don't know if you remember me, or I don't know if you remember that conversation. And the reality is I don't remember it, because for me, it was just part of my job and it wasn't anything that was high level or this super important meeting. But just that I gave the time, I built the space, I answered respectfully and supportively, that made a difference for that person. And so every time we're out there, every time we're doing things, it matters. So, you know, I would say that for everybody, whether you're a student, faculty, or staff, it matters.
Thank you so much, Ray, for, again, taking the time today with us, sharing your insight and your journey. Really, really appreciate you taking the time today, and then for all that you've done for the division and all of us as students and staff and members of the Skyline College community. So a deep and sincere thank you from all of us to you.
Well, Thank you to all of you, I want to say, because it's, it's an incredible journey for me as well. So I get as much as you do.
Thank you. Thank you. And so I want to acknowledge that there were a handful more questions that did come through, but in the interest of time, I editorialized and went over them as they were more logistical, administrative questions that we'd be happy to answer via email. So if there were any questions that you guys felt weren't addressed, please feel free to reach out to us and we can address them then. But again, I'm going to go ahead and close out the recording. And again, thank you, Ray, for taking the time with us today.
Thank you, everybody. Much appreciated.